Welcome to Vampires and Mermaids. I'm Erin.
I'm Risha.
And you've got a long one this week, and I've got a short one.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Oh, she's got printed paper today.
I do have printed paper today.
Oh, I feel like I should buckle up.
So this one is actually a story I've been trying to re-find for about 4.5 years.
Oh.
Because I read it, like I opened a book to a random page, and this was the story, and I fell in love with it.
And you didn't know what page or what book? Or...
No.
Oh, boy.
I was really trying to search for it.
Oh, my.
And I
okay.
couldn't find it. And now I found it again.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it.
Yes, it has a lot of repetitive spots in it, so bear with me, but I'm going to tell you the story kind of as it's written. It's folklore, so it doesn't have copyright, so don't at me. But it's a Russian tale that is either called the vampire or the fiend. So it has two different kind of names, and I'm going to get right into it.
Woo!
Woo! In a certain country, there lived an old couple who had a daughter called Marusa, or Marusia. She also goes by Mary, so we might just pop that in. In their village, it was customary to celebrate the Feast of St. Andrew on November 30th, and the girls used to assemble in some cottage, bake pampushki, and enjoy themselves for a whole week, or even longer. And these girls met together once when this festival arrived and brewed and baked what was wanted. In the evening came the lads with the music, bringing liquor with them, and dancing and revelry commenced.
This sounds like a great girls' weekend.
That's lovely. All the girls danced well, but of course our girl, Marusa, danced the best. After a while, there came into the cottage a fine, fine fellow. "Mary, come up! Regular blood and milk and smarty and richly dressed." "Hail, fair maidens," says he. "Hail, good youth," they say. "You're merry-making? Be so good as to join us." So he's like, "Oh, what you doing? There's a party?" They're like, "Yes, come join." Thereupon, he pulled out of his pocket a purse full of gold, ordered liquor, nuts, and gingerbread, was ready in a trice, and he began treating the lads and lasses, giving each a share. Then he took to dancing. Why, it was a treat to look at him. Marusia struck his fancy more than anyone else, so he stuck close to her. The time came for going home. "Marusia," he said, "come and see me off." And she went to see him off. "Marusia, sweetheart," says he, "would you like me to marry you?"
Wow.
Get right to it. "If you like to marry me, I will gladly marry you. But where do you come from?" is what she responded. And he says, "From such and such a place. I'm clerk at a merchant's."
Girl, run.
They bade each other farewell and separated. When Marusia got home, her mother asked her, "Well, daughter, have you enjoyed yourself?" "Yes, mother, but I've something pleasant to tell you besides. There was a lad there from the neighborhood, good-looking, with lots of money, and he promised to marry me." And the mother replies, "Hark ye, Marusa, when you go to where the girls are tomorrow, take a ball of thread with you. Make a noose in it, and when you are going to see him off, throw it over one of his buttons and quietly unroll the ball. Then, by means of the thread, you will be able to find out where he lives."
Oh, that's a big-ass ball of thread, first off.
Right? The next evening, I'll cut a little bit of this short by saying pretty much the same thing happens in the night, but she does this, and she loops the button with this thread. At first, the thread followed the road, and then it stretched across the hedges and ditches and led Marusia towards the church and right up to the porch. And she tried the door, but it was locked. She went around the church, found a ladder that was set against a window, and climbed up to see what was going on inside. It's like stalker, like entirely.
I mean, that's also supposedly her fiance, though.
Right,
too,
I guess that's true.
Girl's getting her information.
Well, and he was like, from such and such a place. And she's like, where?
Right. I mean, this was pre-Facebook. You had to do what you had to do.
That's true. And then so she was actually able to get into the church. She saw her betrothed standing beside a grave and devouring a dead body.
Uh-oh.
For a corpse had been left for that night in the church. She wanted to get down the ladder quietly, but her fright prevented her from taking proper heed, and she made a little noise. But she ran home, beside herself, fancying all the time she was being pursued. She was all but dead before she got in because she was so exhausted and terrified. And then the next morning, her mother goes, "Well, Marussia, did you see the youth?" And she said, "I saw him, mother." But she didn't say anything else. She was like, "Yeah, I saw him."
Girl, talk to your mother.
And so in the morning, she was sitting, considering whether she would go to the gathering then that night. Her mother said, "Go, amuse yourself with the young." So she went to the gathering. The Fiend, now, as she is referring to him, was there already. And they were doing games, fun, dancing, the same thing as the last couple of nights. "Come, Marussia," says the man, "see me off." She was afraid and didn't stir. And all the other girls went up to her and were like, "What are you thinking? Why are you being bashful now? Go see the boy." Like, they're like, "Girl, what you doing?" And so she was like, there's no help for it. She went out, not knowing what was going to happen. As soon as she got to the street, he started asking her questions. And he said, "You were in the church last night?" She replies, "No." And saw what was going on there? She replies, "No." "Very well. Tomorrow your father will die."
Oof.
And then he disappeared. Marussia returned home sad, and she woke up in the morning and her father was dead.
Oh.
She, cried and was very upset by this, of course. And then her mother went off to the priest, but Marussia stayed home, and the bad guy comes back. And, she went out to find him. And he said, "Good evening, Marussia. Why aren't you married? Oh, why aren't you merry? Just happy. Why aren't you happy?" And she's like, "Bitch, my father's dead." And he goes, "Oh, poor thing." And they all were sad. And then he says again, "Come see me off." And she didn't want to. The other girls around are like, "What are you thinking of? Go see him." And so she went to see him. And he says again, "Were you in the church?" "No."
Oh, good. Have you learned nothing?
"Did you see what I was doing?" "No." "Very well. Tomorrow your mother will die." And so he spoke and disappeared. She returned home sad again. And then the night went by. The next morning, she woke up and her mother was dead. And she cried all day long. And then she became afraid at nighttime. And she went to her friends, and they were all like, "What's the matter with you? Like, what's going on? And why aren't you cheering up?" And it's like, what kind of friends are these?
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, your parents just died, both of them.
Within 24 hours of each other.
Yes. And she's like, how am I supposed to be cheerful? Yesterday my father died and today my mother. And then they were like, "Oh, you poor thing. Such an unhappy girl."
Oh.
And then when the time was to say goodbye, the guy comes up again. He's like, "See me off." She's like, "Okay." And so she goes with him. And he's like, "Tell me, were you in the church?" "No."
Oh, my gosh.
"And saw what I was doing?" "No." "Okay, very well. Tomorrow evening, you will die yourself." And so she spent the night with her friends. In the morning, she considered what she should do, and she went to her grandmother, a very, very old woman who had become blind from length of years. She said, "Suppose I go and ask her for advice." And she went off to her. She says, "Good day, Granny." "Well, good day, granddaughter. What news is there with you? How are your father and mother?" "They're dead, Granny."
Oh.
Like, Granny didn't know.
Oh. Oh, no.
Gosh.
Granny, I need advice. Also, your
Right?
kid and kid-in-law are dead.
And so she listened to her and she's like, you poor unhappy child, go quickly to the priest and ask him his favor that if you die, your body shall not be taken out of the house through the doorway, but that the ground shall be dug away from under the threshold and you shall be dragged out through that opening. So not over the threshold, but under. And in a different version of this, I heard through the window.
Sure.
And also to be buried at a crossroads, at a spot where 4 roads meet specifically. And so she asked the priest to do this, and he made him promise to do it. And she returned home, bought a coffin, laid down in it, and immediately died.
Wow.
They told the priest, and he buried first her father and mother, and then Marussia herself. Her body was passed underneath the threshold and buried at a crossway. Soon afterwards, a signor's son happened to drive past Marussia's grave. That's what it says in the...
All right.
It's all right. On that way, he saw growing a wondrous flower. And it was one he had never seen before. And so he said to one of his servants, go and pluck up that flower by the roots. We'll take it home and put it in a flower pot. Perhaps it will blossom there. They dug up the flower, took it home, put it in a glazed flower pot, and set it in a window. The flower began to grow larger and more beautiful. One night, the servant hadn't gone to sleep somehow, and he happened to be looking at the window, and he saw this wondrous thing take place. All of a sudden, the flower began to tremble. Then it fell from its stem to the ground and turned into a lovely maiden. Da, 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 da. It was beautiful, but the maiden was more beautiful still. She wandered from room to room, got herself various things to eat and drink, ate whatever she wanted, and then she became a flower again and mounted the window and resumed her place on the stem.
Oh.
Next day, the servant told the young man of the wonders which he had seen during the night. And he said, why didn't you wake me? Tonight we'll both watch and see. And so they both did again, and they saw the same thing. She blossomed out of the flower and was a woman. And then the next morning, he said to his father and mother, please allow me to get married. I've found myself a bride.
Oh.
Yep, I'm gonna marry that flower.
Oh. Okay.
His parents were like, yeah, sure.
Okay.
As for Marussia, she said, only on this condition will I marry you, that for 4 years I need not go to church. He's like, very good. All right.
I'm not going to ask why, but okay.
Yep. So they were married. They lived together 1 year, 2 years, had a son. But one day they had visitors to their house who enjoyed themselves. They drank and began bragging about their wives. One's wife was handsome. The other one was handsomer still, So the host was like, you may say what you like, but a handsomer wife than mine does not exist in the whole world. And the guest said, well, handsome, yes, but a heathen.
Oh.
He's like, how so? Well, she never goes to church. So the husband did not like these observations. He waited till Sunday and told his wife to get dressed for church.
Oh, boy.
He said, I don't care what you may say. Go and get ready directly. Like, we did not agree upon this. But she got ready, went to church. The husband went in and didn't see anything out of the ordinary. But when Marussia was looking around, she saw the fiend sitting in the window. There you are at last, he cried.
Oh,
remember old times. Were you in the church that night? No.
Oh, good God, girlfriend.
And did you see what I was doing there? No. Very well, tomorrow both your husband and your son will die.
Oh.
Marussia rushed straight out of the church to her grandmother. The old woman gave her 2 vials, one full of holy water, the other the water of life, and told her what she was to do. So the next day, both her husband and son died, and then the fiend came flying to her and asked, tell me, were you in the church? I was.
Finally.
And did you see what I was doing there? You were eating a corpse. She spoke and then splashed the holy water all over him. In a moment, he turned to mere dust and ashes, which blew to the winds. Afterwards, she sprinkled her husband and her boy with the water of life, and immediately they revived. And from that time forward, they knew neither sorrow nor separation, but they all lived together long and happy.
Holy cow. That's a lot to unpack.
That was a lot.
Man, girl, if something doesn't work, do something else.
Right? Just, no.
Oh, my. Oh, I like that story, though.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, my gosh. Sorry, I just don't even have words for
Right.
that. So how did you find this eventually? How did you re-find it?
So I kind of looked up, I remembered the flower and the crossroads the most, I think. And so I was like, Russian vampire crossroads flower woman.
All right.
And then I found somebody had posted something and it had her name in it. And I was like, that's right. It was Marussia. And so I looked up Marussia Russian vampire and then I found it.
Oh,
again.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, good sleuthing. That's
Right?
a really interesting
Oh my gosh,
story.
it's weird. And there is something, maybe I'll get to it in another episode about crossroads and the reasoning for that. And
because I've heard that before, so that'd be cool. Well, I have a total 180 from folklore to a real person.
Ooh.
I want to say ahead of time, please, I'm going to do my best with pronunciation of her name, but just please be forgiving.
Yeah,
I'm
always.
trying. Yeah, I'm trying to be respectful. I'm trying hard. It's the best I can do. We have gotten a little baby following now on Spotify, which is so nice. If you haven't already followed us on Spotify, if you're listening, go ahead and hit that follow button. If you like us, leave us that 5-star review. If you don't like us, goodbye. I don't know why you're still listening.
Just move along.
Yep, and check us out on Vamps and Murs on Instagram. But on Spotify, we have a good little chunk of our following. I think it's up to 14% now. That's from South Africa.
Yo.
And I thought that was really freaking cool. So hi,
Shout
everyone. Yeah, we love having you here. Thanks for joining. And so I decided let's look up some South African mermaids.
Ooh.
And I was expecting like a legend or some lore, and I found something way cooler. So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about, and here's my pronunciation, Zandile Ndhlovu. And she is a real person. She is stunning. Like just her personality, and I mean she's also just gorgeous, but her personality is so bright and bubbly, and I highly recommend going and looking up a video of her. She has a couple out there right now because she's actually received a fair amount of awards, and she was like Times 100 Women in 2023. She was on that list. Yeah, she's really neat. So she pops up because her nickname is the Black Mermaid, and she is founder of the Black Mermaid Foundation.
Ooh.
So Zandile is the first Black African free diving instructor, but she grew up in a landlocked city and didn't learn how to swim until she enrolled in a multiracial school at 11.
Wow.
And she learned how to swim. She enjoyed it, but it wasn't anything, particularly passionate for her. It was a good skill to have. But she was going through, I believe, a divorce in 2016 and took herself on a trip to Bali, Indonesia. And she went snorkeling and absolutely fell in love with the ocean. And up to this point, she worked in corporate. She was a consultant on equality and diversity and inclusion. There wasn't a ton of details, but she was in corporate. She still enjoyed the outdoors. She was a mountain biker, did a lot of hiking, all kinds of really cool, badass stuff. But she found this passion for the ocean and freediving specifically and decided she wanted to make a career out of that. So she went and got scuba certified and freediving certified and became a freediving instructor. So freediving is anytime you dive underwater without external air. So you have one breath that you hold and you go down.
Oh.
Yeah, so you don't have a scuba tank with you. A lot of the times they show her where she'll freedive with a snorkel because she'll kind of like come up, lay on her belly, breathe through the snorkel, but then she'll take a big inhale and go swim through these kelp forests and stuff. Yeah, she said at rest, she can hold her breath a little over 4 minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah, but she is so fun to listen to because she just is so bright and just bubbly. She was saying how like, oh, but that's at rest, if I'm excited, I saw some dolphins the other day and like I had to breathe after like 30 seconds, or like if I see a great white or a white shark, I mean, it's 10 seconds max.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so she's just so fun because she's so honest and she's so not braggy. Like she's very humble. But listening to her talk about the ocean is just really beautiful. She talks about how when she enters the ocean and she swims daily, it's very spiritual for her. So she asks for permission before entering the ocean, and she tries to leave with gratitude in her heart, and how freediving is all about being relaxed and allowing yourself to be in awe of your surroundings. And it's just really beautiful, and it's really neat to listen to her. So I highly recommend going and looking up some videos on YouTube. She also has a podcast called The Ocean Tribe Hangout.
Ooh.
It hasn't been posted on since 2021.
Sure.
But still looks like there's some really interesting episodes. So I want to go listen to those, like some underwater archaeologists that she interviews,
Wow.
marine studies. Yeah, it's really interesting.
What was it called?
The Ocean Tribe Hangout.
Aw.
And that is available on Spotify too. I didn't check other sources, but I at least looked to see if I could follow it, and I
Right.
can. So I mentioned earlier her nickname became the Black Mermaid, and she totally embraced that and took it and ran with it. And she said it was interesting to her because whenever she was on these boats going out on these excursions, she was the only one on the boat who looked like her.
Oh,
She was the only one who was black.
Sure.
Everyone else who was doing this was white. It was a very white field. And so it was really important to her to, she felt very honored that she was able to be the Black Mermaid and kind of have that representation. But she also wanted the ocean and marine biology and marine studies to be more diverse too. So she founded the Black Mermaid Foundation. And the whole goal of this is to take specifically black youths, and it's so sweet. She calls them little people, and I just love that. Like, she truly is just a bright light in the world. So she takes her little people out on these ocean education excursions, and it's all about just getting them to see the ocean, because she says if you don't see something, you're not going to care about it. Like, the first step to caring is to be able to see it. And so she'll take kids who are an hour or 2 hours away from the ocean and wouldn't have the resources to go there on their own, and she teaches them how to swim and how to explore the ocean and wear snorkels. And part of that's also she wants to introduce them to not only, being conscious about the planet, but also there are job opportunities involved in that too. So she's really doing it to just try and broaden their view of the world, and also just have an appreciation for the world they live in. And to bring more diversity, because like I said, it's specifically, black little people, as she said. So, the youths of the black community out to the ocean too, to try and have that representation. I think this is just a really, really great example of how important representation is and how super cool it is for young kids to see someone who looks like them doing totally badass, cool things. She has waist length blue braids or twists, and her hair is just stunning. And she has this amazing smile, and she just looks like someone you want to hang out with. She also talked a little bit, the Black Mermaid Foundation is definitely where one of her passions lies, but she also talks a lot about conservation. She said she fell in love with freediving first and then the marine animals second, because she got to have this close experience with them.
yeah.
And she said, she actually said in an interview, I think it was for Shark Week actually, that she's freedived with white sharks, tiger sharks, all these different sharks, and how there's something really beautiful in not having that scuba tank on your back, because you're able to get closer to them and there are no bubbles and it's just silent, and how they get closer to you. And I'm not going to exactly quote it because I don't remember it, but she said something really beautiful about how there's this moment where you're in the ocean with a shark and you're both on the same currency, but the shark knows that is their currency and yours is only borrowed. And I just thought that's really interesting, of having this borrowed currency of being able to be in the water with them.
That's put really beautifully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just totally is like that. Her absolute awe and love for the ocean is just incredible. She also went a little bit in one of the videos into, she has a foraging license, and she actually took classes to learn how to forage in her area in the ocean. And that's something she really enjoys and thinks it's really important that we learn where our food comes from and how to be able to collect food for ourselves, but in a ethical and sustainable way. So she took the cast on that, or the film crew that was doing this interview with her, on a dive, and she was picking, I think she called it sea lettuce or sea greens or something. And she was just putting it in her pocket, and she grabbed some kelp and brought that home. And then they flashed to her in her kitchen, and she's showing how she makes this amazing kelp salad with all these veggies, and how she prepares it, and how she just feels like that's something that's really important, because not only does it make her, it's first off very nutritious,
Yeah.
but it also makes her feel very connected to the world around her. But she really stressed how important it is to be able to do it sustainably. So she's educated herself in what types of fish or what types of plants can she harvest, what amounts. It's all very measured. It's all very safely and correctly done. So I just think that's really interesting that even in her more technical areas, she educates herself, but still combines her education and her passion. And I just really enjoyed learning about her. So I definitely recommend, like I said, going and following either her podcast or her Instagram. Her Instagram's beautiful too. And that's Zandile Ndhlovu. So Zandile, and her last name is Ndhlovu. And that is the Black Mermaid of South Africa.
That's really cool.
Right? I'm obsessed with her. I follow her on like every platform now. I think she's just amazing, and we can all definitely learn a little bit about her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something kind of light and fun this week. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. Normally I have like the stories and you have like some real world ties, but I had an actual person this week. So,
Yeah.
And if you're listening from South Africa, thanks for listening too.
Hi.
Hi, we're so happy to have you.
Yeah, let us know if the pronunciation was correct.
Yes. And if it wasn't, feel free to like take a video and send it to me the correct way.
yes.
And I watched a few interviews with her and I tried to get it close, but I know my accents are trash. That's on me. So that was kind of tricky for me, but I mean, the way she says it, it's just beautiful. It's like, well, I'm not going to get that correct. But, and then there were also different pronunciations, especially for her first name, that were different based on who was saying it. So I watched a video where someone from Botswana said it, and they said more of a Lee instead of a Lay, and South Africa, and they had a few different areas. So I tried to go off more what the interviewers said.
Sure.
Just because I figured they were actually with her and hopefully got it correct.
Right.
I tried hard.
Yeah.
That counts. And I think she seemed like the kind of person who would just be happy I tried hard. So I'm going to go with that.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Just try.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
What do we need to try and do this week?
Well, either
Vote, please, or message us.
Either cover your neck and watch your tails.
Or stay thirsty and keep wet.
Obscurantism and obfuscation.
Orally observed, gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Obviated objects of oblivion.
Obambulating about.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
In the Tapestry Radio Network.
TapestryRadio.org.
From our fancy to yours.